Am I the a-hole stories? Am I the a-hole for evicting my ex even though she has cancer? I am 24, while she is 22, and I do have the ability to legally evict her. I went to a courthouse and they decided on giving her 60 days, which is frankly a bit too much. I do think of myself as a pretty nice guy, but I'm pretty callous to people who betrayed me. She slept with another guy on New Year's Eve, and everything came downhill from there. She found that she had breast cancer around 3 weeks ago, and she says that treatment is already getting pretty expensive. Her parents live on the opposite side of the world, and so do most of her close friends. She says that she can't find a place to leave during quarantine, while having no money, and during winter. I honestly don't care about her concerns. I only have a legal obligation to let her stay, and her time is up. I'm pretty sure she's still on my property, and if she does trespass for enough time, I'll just call the county sheriff. I just floated a bit to my friends, and I guess it's spread to some of our mutual friends. They're thinking I'm the biggest a-hole ever. Evicting a woman with breast cancer with no place to stay during winter. But, they always leave the part that she made out with another dude. So, I just want to get a neutral perspective. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your friends can take her in if they're so concerned. It sounds like they don't even live together. She's renting from OP. If that's the case, I'd just say, with everything going on right now, I just can't afford to have a non-paying tenant. Maybe I'd be more lenient if she showed she cared about me much at all, but cheaters know they run the risk of burning bridges when they cheat. That said, it sounds like you'd be more inclined to give her a place to stay, especially since she didn't do the same to you. Should I give her your number? We don't have any proof from OP that the ex missed a rent payment, or any explanation about what he's evicting her for. Per the post, the ex only said she doesn't have the money to find a new place to live, which is a different thing altogether. The costs of moving plus paying a rental deposit are often exponentially higher than the cost of 1 month's rent. I think we're missing key details here. She cheated on you and you went through legal proceedings to get her out of your life. She was given a 60-day notice, then found out she has cancer later on. A responsible adult would have already been making attempts to go elsewhere, maybe even back to her parents and close friends so she can be supported during her treatment after she found out her diagnosis. At this point, you owe her nothing. Not the a-hole. A 22-year-old is barely an adult. I think that's the point. These are barely adults in a very adult situation. I'm 22 and I promise you, if I were in her shoes, I'd be smart enough to be making arrangements to go somewhere else. Just because we're barely adults doesn't mean we don't have common sense. Not the a-hole. She should have think before she cheated on you. Having cancer or not, having enough money is not your problem. She caused it. What everyone fails to realize, regardless of the cheating, no one owes anyone anything at any point. Just because you date some for any amount of time, doesn't mean you have to float or give beyond what you want to. And I may sound callous, but I'm not just being real. This being an ex, and if this story isn't or is true, you don't have to do anything. And don't let anyone tell you or treat you otherwise. Not the a-hole, by the way. Oh, and 60 days is more than enough time to figure out at least a couch. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my ex-girlfriend see my child? This is a long and painful story. To start, my ex-girlfriend and I lost our son due to sudden infant death syndrome when he was 4 months old. It was traumatic and brutal, and even now I still feel that pain. My ex took it the hardest and the grief really put her in a dark place. She started drinking so much right after he died, refused to get any kind of help even when I tried to push her into going to grief counseling with me. After a year, she was a different person and I couldn't stay in the relationship anymore since she didn't accept help from anyone, and it was clear she wasn't going to change. 8 months after the breakup, I met my now fiancé. A year and a half later, we found out we were having a baby. My ex found out about it somehow and freaked. I was getting constant messages on Twitter, FB, Instagram from her calling me names, because how dare I try to replace our son. It didn't stop there. She was also harassing my fiancé, telling her I'm not really in love with her and just using her to recreate the family I used to have with my ex. And her fiancé child will never replace our child. It was seriously disturbing and I had to block her, plus get her family involved. We didn't hear from her anymore. Our son is barely a year old now, and she contacted me again. This time she was apologizing for her behavior in the past. She admitted she was still hurt over me leaving her and moving on to start a family with someone else. She's asked if I could see her just once to meet my son. That was a shock to me and I had to ask why. My ex says she wants to meet our son's brother and hold him, so she can feel connected to her boy one last time. Honestly, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this, but it made me pretty uncomfortable. She says she only wants one meeting and won't bother us again. But with her history, my fiancé and I don't feel like we want our son to meet her at all. She's been asking us repeatedly even after I already said no, and her mom has reached out to me. My ex is very depressed right now it seems. Her mom asks if I could do her this kindness and maybe this will give her some sort of closure. It just doesn't sit right with me. Her family is pressuring me now and my ex keeps begging me to let her have this one thing. Now even my own mom thinks I'm being too paranoid and callous with her. That she's obviously grieving losing her child, and I shouldn't forget this was someone I once loved. So yes, people think we're being too cold not doing my ex this favor and I don't know if we are. Not the a-hole. Please contact her parents or someone who cares about her, she needs professional help, this state of mind is very bad. Meeting your son will probably just push her even further down the rabbit hole. This sounds like the start of a Criminal Minds episode with the ex being a serial killer that kidnaps children. I was just thinking this sounds like how baby kidnappers sometimes start. Not the a-hole. Yes, your ex needs serious help. She's obviously ill. But you aren't her physician or her therapist. Given her past behavior, there's no reason at all you should feel safe or comfortable doing this. She was severely abusive to you and your fiancé. I don't think you're being cold. I think you're being prudent, given all she's put you through. And I am so sorry about your loss. I would go one step further and actually apply for a restraining order. There's absolutely no need for this woman to meet your child. If I was the parent in this situation, I'd make sure she didn't even know what the kid looked like. Not the a-hole. Her fixation on your son is concerning. I'm worried her fixation would only deepen if given the chance to meet him. He is not her son, nor a replacement for the child you lost. I would refuse to allow a meeting and would cut all further contact. Your priority must be your son and fiancé's safety and well-being. I don't know why, maybe I've watched too many crime shows, but this just gives me mad bad vibes. I don't know what about it causes them, but I automatically was like she is going to try and take said baby or put it in a dangerous position. It's 100% do not let her near the child. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to move? My, female 42, husband, male 44, and I have been married for 21 years. We have 2 adult children, male 22 and male 24, one is in college out of state and the other is in the Navy. When we first got married, my husband was in the Navy, and we spent the first 10 years of our marriage moving from place to place, wherever his new duty station was. I found it hard to make friends, and I could not keep a job, so I made a difficult decision and decided to be a stay-at-home mom. When he got out of the Navy 11 years ago, he took a job and we moved. 3 years in, he got offered a job in another part of the company, however, it was in another state, so we moved again. We stayed there for 6 years. I went back to college and got my degree and began looking for work. I found a job I liked in my field, and 6 months into working, he said he was offered a job with a new company and wanted to take it, but that would mean we would be moving almost 2,000 miles from where we were in a new state. I reluctantly agreed because the new state would have more job opportunities for me and we would be closer to our family, which is something that we have not had in many years. Last night, my husband came up to me and said that there was a job opening in his company and he wanted to apply for it. It would mean a pay raise and better hours, but the caveat would be that we have to move again. We have been living in our new state for 3 years. I love it here. I have an amazing job and I am making great money. I finally have friends and am able to socialize. I told him that I am not moving again. Anytime we have to move, he always leaves first and I end up being responsible for selling/packing the house, and I am not doing that again. Our son's college is only 2 hours from here, we can see him twice a month. If we move, that means we would have at least a day's drive and would only be able to do that once or twice a year. Now my husband is upset with me and guilt-tripping me because he claims I do not support him. I told him that was BS because I spent most of my life moving from place to place to support his career. He told me that I am selfish, and he is just trying to provide for us. I told him that we are more than comfortable where we are now, and that if he truly wants to take the job, he will be going alone. Am I the a-hole for refusing to move again? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You gave yourself already the answer. You supported his career for 21 years, you gave everything up for him, your social life, your family, even postponed your education. And now, everything is settled, you're doing financially fine too. He accuses you of not supporting him. He should start supporting you for a bit. You did your part, now it's your time to shine. Perfect reply. He obviously has no idea what you have given up and gone through in supporting him, or, he just doesn't care. You're both relatively young, so if he does decide to move, it'll be your decision whether to follow him or not, but by giving up the life you finally have for yourself could cause resentment on your part. Not the a-hole, but I think you may be married to one. Not the a-hole, but I think you may be married to one. This so much. My husband's in a job that may require him to move around, and before we decide on a move, he would insist on factoring in my comfort, proximity to good medical care, I have an autoimmune condition, availability of great schools now that we have a daughter, etc. All that may not have a set monetary value, but they're definitely worth something, or we won't see people spending money to join planned communities. Not the a-hole. Your husband should be discussing each move with you, and it should be a combined decision, especially now that you have a job. His job and offer does not automatically have preference over yours. Did he ever discuss a move with you after he left the Navy? Or was it always "we are doing this"? I was still on the fence given the history with the Navy, totally understandable needing to move and being used to it. But the fact that he expected you to sell and pack the house every time, is what made up my mind on the judgment. For the post-Navy jobs, I can't believe the companies didn't give him time to settle his affairs and then move. It seems like he took it for granted that you would sell and pack the house every time. That too with little kids when they were younger. I could never imagine being in that situation alone. Stand up for yourself now. It is not too late. Have a conversation about the pros and cons. About long-term plans. It is okay if you end up deciding to move. Just make sure you have a say in it. This is what gets me. I give a pass for the pieces or whatever they call it in the Navy. He didn't get a say in when or where, but as soon as he got out, there should have been a discussion about long-term goals and plans. Each and every move should be a joint effort. Not the a-hole. He's become accustomed to always getting it his own way with very little pushback. Now that's not just happening, he's trying to guilt and flip it around on you. Stand your ground. It's going to be tough because there's been a pattern over years which he will be loath to give up, but it's now or never for you. Polish that backbone. When one is accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Paraphrasing several dozen people. Post update. I hope that this is allowed. I apologize for not being able to respond to everyone. And thank you all for your kindness and replies. To answer some questions. 1. My husband and I have been together since I was 15 and he was 17. He joined the Navy right after graduation from high school when he was 18 and I was 16, but had to wait 2 years before we could marry. 2. He works for a company that has plants in 15 states. He is currently in middle management, but if he wants to advance his career further, he would need to go to another plant out of state. 3. Financially we are more than comfortable. We do not need any more money. 4. My son plans to stay in the place he is after college. We have a great relationship with him and he comes home 1 time a month, and we see him 1 time a month. My other son comes home on leave whenever he can and stays with us. We are very close to both of the boys. 5. I talked to my husband again tonight and told him quite firmly that moving again was not an option for me. The area he wants to move has very little jobs in my field and specialty in that area, and I would need to commute more than an hour one way for a job versus the 20 minutes I have here. We are sandwiched between 2 major cities, and if we move, we would be an hour from the most major city. I would also have to take a massive pay cut and work a menial job to build a new network to find employment in my field. 6. My husband is disappointed in me for not wanting to leave. He left to stay with a friend because he needs to think. He doesn't understand why I would force him to turn down an opportunity to advance his career further. I told him to take all the time he needs, but I am not moving again. I said I would revisit the possibility when I am ready for retirement in 15 years, but no sooner. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole if I put my son's father on child support? So, I'm a first-time mom to a wonderful little boy, too. His father and I haven't been together since before he was born. We had a falling out, and he went to jail. That's a different story though. So, in the span of 2 years my son's father has given me $600, 2 boxes of diapers, a box of wipes, and a bag of used clothes. I've always made sure my son was taken care of. I never asked or bothered him for anything unless I genuinely needed it. I told him I wanted him to start spending time with his son. He said he would take him on weekends. Well, the weekends came and he never showed. It's happened multiple times and it's jeopardized my job. I've reached out and told him that it was unacceptable to ignore his duties as a parent. He never once said that he didn't want to be part of the baby's life. If he did, then I would let that happen. Everything came to a boil this last week, when I asked him for some money to buy my son more clothes. He told me he feels like I'm spending the money on other things, and he no longer is going to give me anything. Instead, he's just going to buy whatever the baby needs and drop it off when he can. I told him I was offended that he would say that since I've given up so much for our son. I told him that by law if he didn't want to pay anything, he needed to take him 50% of the time. Well, it was his turn to take the baby and he ignored me. Went half the week without responding and then said, "I'll give you $300 and take him on weekends. I can't during work since I don't have a sitter. Stop tripping already." I will admit I was irritated with him. I responded back that that wasn't my issue. I work as well and still manage to take care of our son. You've had all week to plan things. I'm done trying to make this work with you. I'm filing with the courts, so this way there's no more issues for us. Well, that sent him off the deep end. He started cursing me out, saying I was damaging his life, and then told me he was going to quit his job, so the baby wouldn't get anything. I told him to do what he felt was best, but I'm going to court. So now I'm sitting here wondering if I may have gone too far? Not the a-hole. Also, if he quits his job, that doesn't mean he won't owe child support. I knew this guy who took a huge pay cut changing jobs, purposely trying to earn less so he could pay lower child support. He was ordered to pay based off his ability to earn the higher wage. You're not doing anything to anybody. If he did what he said he would, you wouldn't have to take the legal avenue. He did this. It's his fault. I know someone who did this and got this exact response from the courts as well. Really screwed up his plan as now he was forced to give more of his take home, and it cut into his booze and bros money. Once I heard that, I cut ties with the guy. If he's going to act like that towards his own kin, then God forbid how he treats others. Not the a-hole. Child support is for your son, not for you. Please file it so that your son has a chance at receiving what he is entitled to. Clearly your ex has no interest in being a father, financially or physically. He would rather quit his job than spend time with or provide for him. That tells you everything you need to know. Do right by your son, and file with the courts as soon as possible. Please also start gathering evidence that may be needed if your ex tries to pursue custody, as I'm genuinely concerned about his ability to care for your child. Keep screenshots of aggressive text messages, keep a log of all the times he said he would spend time with your son and then didn't show up, etc. Open a separate email address, and email everything to it so that you have it kept safe in case you lose your phone or something. Wishing you and your son the best of luck. I never thought of keeping a log. That's a great idea. Thank you so much. Not the a-hole. Thanks for clarifying below. He's very obviously an a-hole, because he is absent and can't even be bothered to contribute the bare minimum. To be honest, you should have taken him to court a long time ago. In my state, it's 50% of the time for him to not pay. I did speak to a couple pro bono lawyers, and that's what I was told. Thank you for your input. And that's it for this video, guys. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Good day everyone.